Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAD start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
Clicked the wrong one. Sorry about that. What's up, John?
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing? How you doing today, man? It's hard to believe, but this is going to end up being episode 59 of Better Savannah's podcast, John. I told you it was going to jump up to 60 really quick. For our members who will get this tonight, we're recording this on Monday, September 27th, and it will go live a week from tomorrow, which will be October 5th, Tuesday. So this will be the last of our 5 series of candidate interviews for the special election for House District 165 to fulfill the unexpired term of the late Representative Mickey Stevens. I'm really honored and excited today, John. I was just telling our guests before we started, I was kind of looking forward to this all week after the confirmation. Our guest today is Mayor Edna Jackson, the former mayor, served from 2011 to 2016, or 2012 to 2016 is the term years. And we all know her and love her, and I just want to welcome her into the program right away and get started. Mayor Jackson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
It's an honor.
It really is an honor to have you on the show. We've had a ton of guests on, and for sure, you rank right up there at the top of all-time guests on the show. So we appreciate your willingness to sit down for this special election interview. For those who are maybe brand new to Savannah, moved here in the last few years and may not know who you are, and of course, for everybody who does know who you are, let everybody know, a little bit about you and what made you choose to run in this special election for House District 165.
Thank you. First, let me say thank you for having me this evening. It's always a pleasure just to talk to individuals as well as residents of this community. I am native. I grew up in Currytown, which is right off of West Broad, M.L. King and Gwinnett. I often tell young people that I grew up in a house that had no indoor plumbing. The outhouse was in the backyard. The only thing is that we didn't know that we were poor because people in those days looked out for you and they did not look down on you because you did not have. During my early years, I became involved with NAACP at the age of 9 under the leadership of Wesley Wallace Law. And during those years, Mr. Law taught us a lot about the history of Savannah, a lot about African American history, because his thing was, if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going, or where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So that was very important. And then in the 60s, when Greensboro, North Carolina, started the sit-in movement, we decided, being in the youth council, and I was in 10th grade, we decided that if North Carolina could start the protest movement there, the sit-in movement, that surely we as young people could do it here in Savannah. But the thing that we had to do, we had to be trained. We had to be trained in a number of things, not to fight back. And that was the hardest thing my grandmother said about me, because if you hit me, I was going to hit you back. But I endured, and I did not. But I went on through my high school years and then into college. I dropped out after the first quarter because my family could not afford to have two of us in. And to my surprise, because of the leadership skills that we had received here in Savannah from Gene Gadsden and Wesley Law and Curtis V. Cooper, Mercedes Wright Arnold, and a whole lot of other people, they asked if I would work down in the state of Florida to teach other young people how to demonstrate. And I'm proud of one thing. I was 18 years old, and it was during this time that we were having the March on Washington. And I was very fortunate to be the leader of a group, an integrated group, to take to the March on Washington. My life goes on and on. It would take up all of your time to figure out. I'd never wanted to run for public office. I was encouraged by Floyd Adams. And when he ran the first time, I ran, and I lost to Gary Gephardt. The next time they said, Edna, you have to do it. I ran again. But it was important back in those days that we have an African-American mayor. And so it wasn't important for me to be in that seat. The second time around, I ran, I won. And then it's history from there on. I became the Mayor Pro Tem under Otis Johnson for 2 terms. And then I became the mayor of our wonderful, illustrious city. And I've always been a fighter and tried to fight for the people, because it's one thing that many of you may remember Clifford Hardwick. He always said it's not about the I, but it was about the we. Now to the question that you really want me to ask. Why am I running? When Mickey and I were classmates from first grade all the way through high school. When Mickey wanted to run this last time, he called me and asked me if I would come over. We were right into the pandemic. And he said, Edna, I want to run one more term. And then, he was not going to run anymore. I said, okay. So we got together, the classmates and others, Regina Thomas and Linda and Brian and all of us, and Westbrook. We got together, we ran this campaign, and of course we were successful by winning by 67, I think it was 67% of the vote. So when Mickey and his family went to Atlanta, and a wonderful message of thank you was given by his wife, everyone assumed, and I did too, that he was resigning. And then we found out that he did not. I went around because of protocol, and anybody that knows me, I like to follow. And I went around and talked with his wife to let her know why I was there, and I wanted to talk to the both of them. And that's when she informed me that he had not resigned. Well, I knew that as long as Mickey was in office, that I would not run for the office. But the person that asked me to run during that time when we thought, that he was giving up the seat was Al Scott.
Okay.
And how that happened. Al and I were talking, and I said, we got to find somebody because this is reapportionment time. We have to have somebody. This is not a learning experience. You have to know how to draw the lines. Back in the day, this is just a note. Back in the day, the legislators and representatives of the community used to sit down together and look at the lines and draw the lines. Gene Gatson and Gwen Goodman and all of them taught us how to do those kinds of things. So then we kept saying, oh, we'll ask Regina. Regina said no. And, we were trying to think. So I said, well, we'll call each other back. So then he called me back and he said, we have the perfect person. And I said, oh, thank the Lord. I said, who is it? He said, you. I said, now, you know what? I'm satisfied where I am. He said, Edna, it's not like learning. You can go up there. And I told him at that time, I said, let me think about it. But I promise you this. If I decide to run, it will be for the unexpired term of Mickey Stevens. So that's where we are. And that's where I am. And I will hold. People keep telling me, don't say that. But my word is all that I have. My name is all that I have. I'm running. I love politics. And I've been in this district since 1971 in the same house that you are seeing to eat this evening. So that's why I'm out here running, because I think that I am the right person to go up there, because if we don't do it now, if we get into a runoff, this district can forget it, because the lines would have been drawn without any representation from the 165th. So, I'm in it to win it. And I'm hoping that the community will see that and will support me.
I appreciate your answer. Sorry to interrupt you, John. I really appreciate that answer, because that was something I was taking up with Adam Van Brimmer a couple of days ago about how, this is about redistricting. But if it does go to a runoff, that runoff will happen likely right as the special session closes. So I really appreciate you making that point to our viewers. I just want to say, John, before we get started into questions, that, Mayor Jackson's commitment to, progress is above reproach with her long storied career. The question is really just about the things that are going to be in this term, and whether she's the right person to shepherd this seat until there's going to be brand new maps. And so we have no idea what this district's going to look like next time. And with your commitment that you're looking to just serve this term, I think it gives you a little bit of an advantage in terms of some of the questions and answers compared to other candidates who have expressly told us they are running for to hold the seat long term. I want to just say I'll forever be, grateful that you put my name forward to be on the Downtown Savannah Authority to 2015. I was telling John the other day, I'm not sure there would be a better Savannah without my experience on that authority, especially after you lost and Mayor Deloach took over and proceeded to max out the credit card, so to speak. So I just want to personally say thank you and I look forward to our questions and answers here. John, you want to start us off with the basic kind of premise of Better Savannah and the main question we've started with everybody?
Sure, I do. Thanks, Chuck. But I do want to just salute Edna for the tremendous amount of love and work that you have given the community. You have shaped this community. There is no way around that. It's a tribute to your many years. I enjoyed my limited time in office when Floyd was mayor, working with you. It seems like a million years ago, but here we are. Mayor Jackson, let me ask you kind of this fundamental baseline question that kind of defines our philosophy and kind of the reason why Better Savannah is doing what it does, and that is this. I think you'll agree that over the last 2.5 decades, Savannah has grown and prospered economically in so many different sectors. For instance, SCAD, 25 years ago had 700 students, and today they have 11,000. The port of the Georgia port, Savannah port, 25 years ago had under 700,000 containers transiting through the port. And last year, I think it was over 4 million, and it's expected to double. And of course, on the hospitality and tourism industry side, 25 years ago, before the book and the film and everything, we maybe had a million tourists a year. And now we have 14 million visitors to our city, whether they're coming in daily from Effingham and Bryan and Liberty County, or whether or not they're destination people. So, having said that, the benchmarks of prosperity are well established. My question for you is, why, after all that growth and prosperity, why does the city's poverty rate essentially remain the same today as it was before all this growth and prosperity? How did we wind up with that?
Well, I think what is happening here in this community, back when I was mayor and as pro tem and all of those, we tried to build programs that would train people in various job situations, particularly for the port, in industries, to work in industries that have come into our city. But I think what we're missing the boat on is that our young people have not realized that there is more to life than just doing the menial jobs, like working at the counters, selling hamburgers, flipping burgers, or what have you. Some kind of way we need to increase our educational training with our young people. I remember when I was the mayor, I met with a group of young men, and we were about to get them trained in various areas. They wanted to be trained, but in some cases, some of them had records. And then you have them, if they were incarcerated, it is very difficult for them to find jobs. Now it is being a little bit more easier, but are we reaching out? Is the community not looking down on our young people because of how they carry themselves, instead of trying to lift them up? And I just think that this community has to come together as a whole. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that in some instances that we need to be sitting down at the table with the young people to hear their views, and older people who have not worked for some time in our homeless camps and all of that, to see just what is needed, what needs to be done. And we have to be good listeners in order to help that. I don't know if the poverty rate will ever go down in a lot of the cities across the country. It's all over. It is just all over the United States. And it seems like there are times when I feel, this is Edna Jackson, that we're not taking care of the people that are out there. And I don't know, back in the day, older people could go and say, child, you're going to be somebody, instead of saying, don't bother that person because they are not, they have been incarcerated, or they have not finished school and what have you. I do not have the answer, John. That is something that is long overdue. But I think it's something that our churches and our community, the total community, business and everything has to get involved in.
Let me just follow up here, John. Let me
Well,
just follow.
I just want to ask one follow-up question.
Go ahead, John.
Mayor Jackson, do you feel that Savannah has a low wage problem?
Oh, definitely so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, definitely so. You know, we raised, if you recall, we raised the employees' salaries. They were the lowest thing on the totem pole.
Yes.
And my God, those that were rendering us the best service, our garbage collection, they were not making anything. And we started increasing and increasing. I would love to see us raise that. And it may not be like, I think the average salary that they're trying to reach now is $15. We've been talking about that for a while. But if you gradually raise them, but if you're going to raise that salary, you have to give our young people something to work towards. If they get up there to the top, then where are they going from there? Can they get into management to make it even more than that? So I think that, yes, there needs to be a coming of the mind to talk about raising the salaries here in our city.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to follow up on this premise of the 30 years, Mayor Jackson. Over this time frame, we have made major decisions as a community. The West Chatham super site, the transference of the port to the state of Georgia, serious long-term continued investment, and we would argue overinvestment into the tourism industry at this point. Without that return on wages, if 2.5 decades of that type of policy has not moved the needle on poverty, should we change our policy outlook at the local level? I mean, how can we sustain another 2 decades of growth without reduction of poverty? Because now we're going to talk about doubling the homeless population, all of those things that will come along with that growth, right?
I think one of the things that, and I regret, I was hoping that I would have had an opportunity to do it. I think that we have to get with some of the corporations and particularly the riverfront, all of these ships that are coming in. Yes, you have the longshoremen and they're working. They are working and working and working. But I do think that there has to be a level of training that some of our industries can reach out, or we can reach out to them in order to raise the level of employment here in our city. It looks like it's been 30 years. I'm sorry, I made a commitment to the young men that sat out there on the corner of West Savannah that we were going to bring some of those industries into the neighborhood. And I wasn't fortunate enough to do that. But sometimes you have to take the business to the people, not the people to the business, because people are not comfortable talking to everyone because they see the hierarchy still as the untouchables, in a sense. It can happen, but it has to be a team effort. Any of you know, I've always talked about team building. That's how I operated my administration. The other thing is consensus building. You are not going to get everything that you want, but if you can sit down and have decent conversations and get a little bit here and a little bit there, then you can see the growth. And that's what I think that is what has to continue to happen in the city.
Thank you for that answer. Before we move into kind of questions surrounding the spring session in the regular session, I do want to give you a chance, because I think a lot of what your pitch to voters is we need representation in the special session. So if you vote for me and I clear 50% plus one, I will be your representative there. The redistricting is kind of, I'm going to pair this question with the restrictive voting bill from last year, because I think that is kind of the biggest portion I've seen of your campaign thus far in the limited. We have a very limited campaign season. So, in the limited time thus far, I've seen, that seems to be kind of a centerpiece, these two issues. So I want to go into this. What do you think your presence in the legislature would mean for rolling back some of these draconian measures, and again, just talk a little bit about the redistricting session and how important it is to have a representative there.
Well, I think it's important, but we have to even look beyond that. Once we get past the redistricting, we also have to look at other issues that are affecting our community. You have to look at the Voting Rights Act. You have to look at what is happening right now when the federal government is making it even more difficult for people to vote. You have to look to see, are they making the right decision by saying that the voter, if they're going to vote absentee, they must have a piece of paper, they must have a driver's license or identification or this or that. You must realize we are an aging city. We have elderly people here that were born in rural areas. Some of them were born in their parents' beds and what have you. There are no birth certificates. How can you get beyond that? You can't use your Social Security card. And then look what they did. Last time I thought they came up with the best idea of putting boxes out for people that wanted to do early voting. Now the box can't come out of the office until the office open up. That's dumb. I mean, I'm just going to say it. It's just plain dumb. And then the other thing that, I have a whole slate of avenues that I'm concerned about. Healthcare. Healthcare in this community is something that we really, 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 really need. And can you think about it? I really support, and I'm going to have to look at some of I know what it was, expansion of the Medicaid expansion.
Yes, ma'am.
See what the state, not what the state, yes, what the state has done. The state has turned down money. Our hospitals, not only here, but in our rural areas where they're closing down, people cannot find adequate health care. That is something on the agenda that I would like to see come back, and we try and move it forward, and hopefully to change some of the opinions. One of the things that people say that I've been able to do all of my life, and being in public office, you always have to be able to work across the lines. In other words, you got to have to get y'all know what I'm talking about. Some Republicans and all, and I've always been able, because when I was the vice president of Georgia Municipal Association, that was one of the things that I had to work with to get people to see the views and to work across the lines. And it happens in the federal government as well. The only thing that I think that has happened is that people have lost respect for each other, and they're not able to work across the aisle.
I'm sorry to butt in here, but I just want to get this question. Do you think, given your long tenured history that everyone in the legislature is going to be familiar with, do you think, along with Leader Beverly, Chairman Mitchell, that you could be part of a Democratic delegation? Because I personally and politically perceive the Kemp administration open to some form of Medicaid expansion. The more every day he gets beat up more by Trump, I think he's more open to a Medicaid expansion deal with half of the Republican caucus and the majority of the Democratic caucus. The key is going to be, what are the details in that negotiating? So who are the main players? And I believe, because of your long storied career, you could immediately be a part of those types of negotiations because of the respect that may still be there across the aisle because of your experience.
Well,
do you think you would work on that during your term?
Definitely. I had breakfast the other morning with Al Williams. He has endorsed me, and he thinks that I can come in running. And he has. I have also received the endorsement of WIN, which is an organization that helped women to get elected. We have not had a woman in the legislature since Regina. since Regina Thomas.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
let me tell you, I worked with Regina through Savannah State. When bills were on the floor, she would say, I'm in the well, call me. You need to talk to Eric Johnson, and stuff like that. That's how you work in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Regina was good at it. And the Dorothy Pelotes were good at it. You had to be able to work with the Ann Muellers and the other people. It's not about just being out there when you're in public, but when you leave the Capitol, going out and having dinner together, talking about the issues together. I know I can do that. I know.
I've read that people who were in DC in the 80s and 90s said that the day that they stopped raising their kids in DC together with members of the other side of the aisle was when it really started to go downhill. I really appreciate that point, John. A lot of our questions are about local issues that, as a delegation member, because of the home rule, the local legislative rule, you will have a lot of influence in. John, why don't you take the charter question? Go ahead.
Well,
go ahead, John. I mean, I want to tell y'all how I see a legislator, but I'll wait.
Okay. Chuck, I want to ask the impact fee question.
Okay.
And then we are very close now to adopting an ordinance to allow for impact fees on new construction. For instance, in 2019, the city of Savannah issued over $700 million of new permitted construction, and we had no impact fee policy. And prior years, we always came in around 600 million, 500 million. It's steadily grown. So I'm happy and looking forward. Oh, here's the chart showing 2019 $707 million in new construction. Thanks, Chuck. So the way the current code works is there's basically three buckets that impact fee revenue can be used or spent in, and that's public safety, recreation, and streets and roads, hard infrastructure. Do you think it would be a good idea? And if so, would you support? And I don't know if this can be done on local legislation. Maybe the DCA would make a local exemption, but if not, on a statewide basis, shouldn't affordable housing?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Edna?
I think affordable housing is something that is needed here. More affordable housing is needed here in this community. But the problem is the developers and what have you are not interested in putting up affordable housing. They want to put up high cost housing. When we were in office, one of the things that Stephanie Cutter and I, as a developer, would come along and they wanted to build an apartment or what have you, we would say, well, now what we need you to do is to make so many of your units affordable units for people to live in. And look at the projects that's over there on Pennsylvania Avenue. We need more of those. You don't hear of crime over there because you have homeowners. You have people that are low income, medium income, and all coming together. But we have to have a plan with the people coming into our community, saying what they want to build and doing it and making sure that the residents that have been here for a very long time will still be able to live. Give you a good example of that. Now, I look over from the river on the east side, around Jones and all of those. Those were low income housing or middle income housing. Now The ordinary resident of the city cannot afford to live in that. And that's sad, because we have to look out for our people. Now, let me tell you what, and I'm on a roll right now.
You are. You go, girl.
Let me tell you one of the things that I promise and I'm committed to, even though I'm saying I'll do a year. You know, when you are an elected official, you are elected to serve 2 terms, 4 years, 2 years, 4 years, what have you. As a representative, when you leave the capital here, it is very important that during those months that you are not up there, that you begin to meet with the residents in this community to see what their continuous needs are. You can't make decisions for the people. You have to make decisions with the people. Anybody can tell you, when I was in public office, sometime I went to 6 neighborhood meetings a night. Carabelle asked me one time when she first came on council, she said, "How did you do this?" I said, "Because I have a system. I get to one at one time, 6 o'clock, then I get to another one at 6:30. And you make it because the residents want to see your faces and they want to know that you care." And
I think Pete Caucus gave you some pointers.
That's right. Yeah.
He was really good. Chairman Caucus was the best.
Yes, he was. I don't know. Pete was everywhere, every day, every time.
There's 3 of them.
There was some talk that there was a double. Absolutely.
Sometimes I would think that there was. He was a member of every organization.
I just want to wrap up this question with a yes or a no. Does it make sense to you to expand the bucket list of impact fee expenses to include affordable housing?
I would love to see it included.
Good, thank you.
But having not read now,
sure,
I don't want you to hold me to something. I really need to go back. You know how long I've been out of public office?
Yes, ma'am.
I need to go back and look what the impact fees are doing. So that's why I said.
I think our premise, just to explain to our viewers and listeners who are going to listen to this episode next week, our premise is that if the affordable housing bucket was added, it would make it more palatable for city council members who have to work with these developers on a routine basis on agenda items. And of course, these developers will spend money in elections, obviously. We think that it might help be the grease to get the wheel going there a little bit.
Yeah, but and you said the money too, and I caught you. I understand what you mean, Chuck. And it should not be about that. It should be about making sound decisions for this community.
Well, it's also
we think
we'll give you contributions and what have you, but that still means that your integrity and all of the things that you are concerned about have to be in place.
Sure. Lastly, if Chuck, though, if you'll allow this, Mayor Jackson, have you had a chance to read the mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force report yet?
Originally, I started out on the Affordable House Task Force, but because of other things that I was doing, to answer your question, I've not read the final part.
Okay. All right.
Product.
Thank you. Chuck, back to you.
I know that we're working our way through that document, John, and there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. We're hopeful to have an episode on it in the near future after we get through some electoral episodes here.
Sure.
Mayor Jackson, one of our kind of, I would say, biggest issues for this election as a member of the delegation will be your influence on the control of the charter. In 2019, I don't know what your opinion was, but many people in town would call the 2019 city council elections revolutionary. 7 out of 9 members did not return, either through retirement or losing their elections. Only Mayor Johnson and Mayor Pro Tem Shabazz were returning incumbents to seats that they won. we've seen what that has given us over the last 20 months or so. I know that you've had many conversations publicly and privately about the division that exists on city council. From our perspective, the kind of original sin of the council was really an attempt to change the charter by a citizen named Gordon Matthews about the rules. And 90 days later, a rules ordinance was passed in April of 2020. It was passed on a 5-4 vote, a very divisive vote. And that rules package codified that if the mayor and city manager don't recommend something for the agenda, you need 5 members of city council just to get something on the official agenda for debate and discussion. Ever since that rules change passed, I think we've seen just kind of the division get worse and worse over time, sometimes get a little bit better. But, I think it's kind of the source of the division. As a former mayor, if 2 or 3 members of the council had come to you and they wanted something on the agenda, even if you knew that you had the votes to vote it down, would you have actively stopped them from getting it on the agenda? What was your modus operandi when you were the mayor?
When I was the mayor, I didn't have to experience that. And I think what it is, it's not what you do, it's the way how you do it. I've looked at this council meeting. We didn't always get along.
No, ma'am.
On city,
there were headbutts and lots of stories. Yes.
Yeah, but we did our stuff among the council members and not among the public. I think that's when people lose confidence in our council, when we don't try and work things out. Otis and I, and I was his pro tem. And if there was something that I didn't agree with him on, I could say, well, Otis, I've given us some thought. I cannot support you at this time. We may have a discussion and he will tell me what his thoughts is on it. It may change my mind or it may not. But if I voted against it, it was no love lost. Because we respected each other. I think that what I see now is a need for something that happened once at Savannah State. We need sensitivity training. Sometimes I think that these cause more problems than anything else. Now, if I were the mayor, I'll tell you right now, these right here would be left in an office until after a meeting was over. It would be left there because you're hearing from everybody and you are not going to come to a consensus when everyone is writing. Yeah, you'll be surprised. I watch the news. I watch the meetings at times and I can tell when certain things are going on. And it makes it very difficult. Nobody knows what it is unless you have sat in that chair. That's it. That could be the most lonesome seat to sit in that chair as mayor, because you are thinking about all of the people. I know I did. I thought about all of the people. Am I making the right decision? Is this the right thing to do? So my thing is, I think, and people, they talk about people that have been here for a very long time that we don't know. We've been called old fogarty people and stuff like that. But we have the knowledge. We have the common sense. And sometimes you have to have other people. My outreach was always to other people, and majority of my council's outreach was always to all people, other people, to listen to other people, because you can't be always right.
Mayor Jackson, I just want to follow up with this. Our Mayor Johnson is a member of the Democratic National Committee. If you win this election, you will be, I believe, a member of Democratic leadership because of your career, deservedly so. One of the most kind of arch nemesis of the party of the last decade and a half has been Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. And Mitch McConnell runs that U.S. Senate like a fine-tuned comb, and always prevented his members from taking tough votes and forced Democratic members to take tough votes. I would frame the current crisis on council in that regard. I want to be fair. You provided some really strong commentary that I think should be listened to by everybody on council. I think you provided some good commentary, but I think that the responsibility is on the 5 who passed that package. Right, because they are the ones of the governing responsibility. It's the burden of command when you're the majority.
I hate when people talk about the 5 and the 4. The 5 and the 4 is very important. That some kind of way they get together and they stop being controlled by people out in the community. It's time to say, let's give this up now, y'all. We're going to sit down here. We're going to have it out, and we're going to have it out in our own way. Otis started something years ago. In January, we would always go out to Howard Marston's place.
Lebanon Plantation.
And it would open up with, before we discuss any city business, get it off your chest. We could talk about
a Festivus.
We would get it up. We would sit there and we'll say anything. And you know the people that were on that council. We had some toughies. Yep. Get it off your chest. And we would do that. And we would just talk, because sometimes people don't realize how they're being perceived. And we would talk, and then we would say, how are we going to handle that? And Otis is so good at doing that. And then we would move to, what is the agenda for the city going to be for this year? How we do it, everybody does it differently. I didn't do I would do the workshops, but I didn't necessarily do get it off your chest. But I also, I would just.
Mayor Jackson, I perceive that you were more politically savvy than our current mayor, because you did not require the need to codify a rigid set of rules. You may have applied those same principles and rules, but in your interactions with all the members of council, whereas this council has put into the rule. I mean, if you're the city, how hamstrung is Jay Melder when he's got 3 or 4 city council people that have a really great idea, and he can't even really justify working on it because he can't get it on the agenda because the mayor doesn't agree? How is that fair for the citizens to prevent seeing that debate and ultimately whether something is voted up or down? I just feel like we're not getting a full representation, just like we aren't getting a full representation in the U.S. Senate either.
Right. And that is your opinion. But I think that it is the approach. I believe that I have always been taught that you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. And it's your initial approach of how you want to do those things. Because you don't have to say, I did this and go back and say, but the community wants this and all of that. I can't do. The I is the I is the I. It's not about the I. It's about the we. How can we work together to move this forward? So I can't get caught up in how things are being done with this administration, but I can tell you this, that I do wish that in some way, some of the things that are happening can change and respect can be held by all. I don't care whether you agree with me or not or anything like that, but you can always be respectful. And that is where I have problems.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Chuck, you want me to handle the?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long is this going to be?
Oh, we've only got probably 10 or 20 minutes. Whatever. If you've got a commitment you need to
I
get
don't
to.
have a commitment, but y'all didn't tell me. Originally
When I spoke with Ann, I had told her we planned for 60 to 90 minutes, but I made no commitment on the 90. I said we just wanted 60 at least.
But you know what, y'all? I thought all the candidates were going to be on the show.
When there's this many candidates,
Yeah.
I don't find it productive. I prefer the long form. I think it gives you a chance to fully express yourself without the need to compete in 60-second sound bites.
Okay.
I think it gives us the chance to follow up and again, we disagree on this issue we just spoke about. I agree with what you just said. We were able to have this conversation respectfully. And I mean, when I say, I just believe you were better at council relations than this current mayor is.
But that's okay. But everybody have their own style.
Sure.
Everybody.
I just worry about slippery slopes because when you codify things based on style, what happens 10 years from now when this is a majority white city because of gentrification?
And
exactly. Those rules will need to be changed probably. That's my point.
All right, let me ask the mayor
John.
an easy question.
Yes.
I thought that one was easy. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Mayor Jackson, you're very familiar with SEDA, the Savannah Economic Development Authority. For our listeners and viewers, the Savannah Economic Development Authority is our economic organization that is a state chartered organization that works in tandem through an intergovernmental agreement with the city and the county and the municipalities. The way SEDA works is they will attract a business to locate here and create jobs and create salaries. In exchange for that job creation and those salaries, SEDA is able to abate their property taxes over some period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I know you know all this. I'm just setting it up so that people who are viewing it understand like you and I understand. In addition to abating property taxes, SEDA can issue bonds if necessary to facilitate the deal. They also, smooth the skids for permitting and authorizations, and they really go to bat for their clients as well. They should.
But the clients though have to meet the same standards as others.
Well, SEDA deals, I'm sure, vary from deal to deal,
right,
based on the number of jobs being created and the salaries being paid. My question is this: since in doing that deal, the schools lose revenue, the county loses revenue for courts and the sheriff and the jail and everything else, and the city, if it's a city-sided project, they lose some revenue, but it's all in exchange for job creation and salaries. SEDA operates with client projections. Once the deal is done and the client is located here, they operate under a sort of self-reporting premise, and what the client says they've done is accepted. Now, the best practice in other economic development authorities is an independent audit at some point in time. It might be in the first 12 months or the first 24 months or 36 months. And what happens is there's like an inspector general, if you will, comes in, an impartial person, and says, hey, they've created more than the jobs that they promised, or the salaries are exactly what they projected. That's all fine and good. Our concern is that there ought to be oversight and audits, independent audits of the SEDA contracts, particularly the big ones, even the small ones, and we don't have that. Do you think that we would be well advised to have best practices like other economic development authorities and vet our deals once in a while and just be certain we're getting what we were promised?
Well, let me put it this way. Our Economic Development Authority does not just only look out for the Savannah area. It looks at expanding in other communities in order to make jobs as well come here. They are trying what have you to expand whatever we do out into other areas and get sites, not only here in Savannah, but in adjoining communities. As far as audits are concerned, I don't want to tell you one way or the other because I'm not that familiar with what is happening at this time. So I don't want to say. All I want to say is that if whatever industries we have coming into this area, we need to make sure that there are jobs attached to it. There is job training attached to it, and that there should be someone following up to make sure that whatever those companies committed to, they're carrying them out.
Let me follow up with a structural question. A lot of our kind of premise at Better Savannah over this 2.5 decades of prosperity is that a lot of these systems are set up where the winners take all. And I think SEED is a great example. So let me describe the structure of the board of directors. And you'll remember nominating and passing on council members of that board, I'm sure. The board of directors of CEDA is 15 members, and the board appointments are rotating 3 round robin. Chatham County government gets 1 appointment, City of Savannah gets the 2nd appointment, but then the board itself gets the 3rd appointment. Given that when that development authority was started, it was not a regional focus. And now that it is, you just said that yourself, I couldn't agree more. Don't you think for the regional perspective, for the sake of the regional growth, and for the sake of the democratization of that board, don't you think it's time to remove that 3rd appointment from the board itself and maybe give it to a rotating municipality in the county?
Pooler.
Well, I think
Pooler. Don't you think Pooler deserves some democratic representation there?
Well, I think then you're talking about the Economic Development Authority, but also there is another group that includes all of the other municipalities, and they have representation on those boards. They work hand in hand with the Economic Development Authority. So I think as we are growing, that organization is growing too. That one started under my administration, and I think it's working very well. There are some people that sit in order to give cohesiveness, there are some of the members that are on the CEDA board that also serve on the World Trade Center board as well. So I think with the team effort, I don't see any harm. It's how it is working now. But I think if you have those kind of concerns, that's when the community have to step up and to express their concerns about what the structure is and make recommendations. If you don't say what you're concerned about, it will never change. It will always be the same. I know we have had to listen, I did, to people because some things that we were doing, they thought we should do it a different way. And after listening to the people, we were able to make, and I can't think of any right now, some changes to accommodate and have more residents involved in decision making that we were doing. So right now, I don't know. I can't answer your question, but that is a food for thought because there are 2 groups.
Yes.
I know that the CEDA has the actual power, and oversees the CEO. I would tell you, I think our group as a whole, membership 100%, and based on the feedback from our advertising, there's a lot of, excuse me, sorry about that. There's a lot of people who are concerned about CEDA, that the way they operate in secret and preferential treatment, I think there's a lot of those type of accusations out there. I just think that the suggestion of giving a rotating municipality the power to appoint that third rotating seat may give a better regional perspective for the growth in the future.
Okay. But I disagree with you with one thing that you just said. They do it in secret. That is not true. All meetings of CETA, World Trade Center, and all of those have to be open to the public. I have sat through many of meetings, whether it be the executive committee or just the general meeting of it, it is open. And if someone sees something that is not right, they need to express it. So I don't see the secrecy that you're talking about. Now, I tell you what, wait, let me finish out.
What?
Then you're talking about the executive director. When you talk about the executive director, there have been executive directors that they have had over there, and I said, thank God he's gone. But it seems like now what we have is a cohesiveness of the two boards that are working together, and they're all working to bring in businesses here in this community. So I don't.
Just for clarification, what's the name of that second board that works with CETA? World Trade Center Board. All the municipalities get an appointment there.
Hinesville is a part of it. It has been opened up to other municipalities.
Scott, I know Scott's on that board.
He is. Scott even represents
to the main World Trade Center board. Yes,
that's right. Okay.
Go ahead, John.
I was just, and I don't want to belabor the CETA point, but I do want to point something out, Mayor Jackson, and that is our suggestion of secrecy, I think, is valid because the degree to which a client who has received the tax abatements and the bonds and the package, the public never sees whether or not they're meeting those objectives and providing the jobs that they promised to do. That is unknown to the public. That is a secret, quote unquote. So,
but as a resident, John, of this community, you can always do an open records request. And a lot of people don't want to do that. You may have to pay 2 cents for the sheet of paper, but have requests.
Mayor Jackson, if I did that, I would only be able to get CETA's numbers, which by their own admission are client projections. Okay. I cannot open records request for clients.
This just goes back to the audit question of there's no independent verification. There was a CETA deal from maybe around the time you were mayor or just before, maybe under audit, because it did develop out of the Port Authority board. But after the port changed over to the state while you were on council, it CETA morphed out of that. And there was a layoff in 2009 or 10 of a bunch of people.
Actually, what it was is the warehousing company decided to consolidate to Jacksonville.
Right. So they left. They picked up and left. And the Savannah Morning News reported on their relocation. And they said that the loss meant about 70 or 75 jobs to Crossroads Business Center through CETA. Well, if you go back when that deal was done before they consolidated, they were supposed to bring 140 jobs. So that told us, hey, they never really got up to full speed. And in other communities, there would have been a contract adjustment to increase their property taxes a little bit or increase their financing costs to equalize for the lack of jobs that were created. I don't want to kick this mule anymore.
I can't. When you talk about 2009, that was just after recession.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't remember that. I cannot speak to something that I cannot remember.
All right, I know the mayor's probably getting a little tired of us.
We appreciate your generosity with your time.
No, that's not what it is. But I thought, my thing is, what can I do if these are suggestions or things that are coming before the legislature,
Right.
that's a different story. I will not get myself as an elected official to try and tell other people what their responsibilities are. The only thing that as an elected official that I can do is to look at what is going on. I think that what you're talking about, these are things that should be asked of the Port Authority, of the city, of the county, of the other municipalities. And then that is when people can come together to get the information, to share the information, and to try and work out some kind of position.
Gotcha.
Mayor Jackson, if you don't mind, I'd love us to just finish this conversation on this last topic surrounding the Weeping Time. We are big supporters of the Weeping Time Coalition. I know that the recognition, I know that you were on council when the recognition was put up in West Savannah along Augusta Avenue, and I imagine you've been following the controversy. I don't want to ask you about the Salvation Army thing. That's kind of a separate issue. But last year, in the last session, and in the upcoming spring session will happen again, the city and Visit Savannah Chamber of Commerce went to the legislature after going through the city to raise the hotel motel tax on the premise that we needed to promote more African-American tourism product. That was what was sold to the city council when it was voted on. The Weeping Time, there is still large tracts of property, not including the Salvation Army, that could be secured for preservation and for memorial and education center that would in fact fit right into an African-American tourism product. The question is this: given that the delegation has to give an up or down on the hotel motel tax expansion for it to pass, will you condition a yes vote on that expansion in the spring session on some of that money being used to preserve the remainder of that land for future educational and tourism product?
Without having all the information, I would love to see it happen. But let me tell you something about, and I'm glad you asked me about Weeping Time. I was fortunate enough a couple of years ago to do the Freedom Trail. As you know, I lived in Birmingham, Alabama for a number of years when NAACP was let back into the state of Alabama. And it was our responsibility to go back and reorganize youth councils and college chapters. Well, I had not been back there to see the whole, and I was a part of the march from Selma to Montgomery. But I didn't know I wanted to see the Freedom Trail. I took a trip and we went from Birmingham. Shinhost's brother does and I can't think of the young lady's name. They do a wonderful job. When I see what was done by the state of Alabama, to preserve the history of what happened there, it could very easily be done, not in the magnitude that it was done there, but the Weeping Time in Montgomery, Alabama, they have these beautiful, you will cry as a result of it, but they have these sort of statues of metal, and they have them showing this lady baby being pulled from her, or different scenes of the family being taken away from the father. They have gallons of dirt that they post where slaves in these cities, not slaves, blacks were hung. It's how you create what you want to use it for. And I don't think that we have used that. Yeah, I don't know if people even said, what can we do out here? What can we do there? What can we do? That's an ideal place. It will build tourism.
Absolutely.
It will do all of those things.
Good.
But you know what we have to do?
What?
We have to get together.
Absolutely.
And you know that. You have people that are talking about building additional homes. Floyd started the home building in the West Savannah area. We continued, but you're talking about bringing something that represents what actually happened in that spot.
Right.
And you can retell that story by doing something like that. I encourage anybody to really want
I hear a very open
yeah.
to this idea compared to many of the other candidates. I think that's a great answer. This is a big issue for the coalition, and it should be for everyone. And let's just be honest, the tourism industry has enjoyed much success. And even though they're still gently recovering from COVID, I don't see a problem with earmarking $5 million for the acquisition, because that family who owns the Bradley Plywood property, we're going to have to offer them a fair market value. Absolutely. Or take it to eminent domain in court. I don't care how we get it, but they're going to have to get paid. We're going to have to acquire it. We're going to have to develop it. We're going to have to staff it. And that's a long-term project, but we can't give away the leverage of the increase in tax without that commitment for it, I believe.
I do think that the Salvation Army project should continue. I've talked to several people about it. Of course, people don't ask you your opinion, but I look at it, a shelter for women and children. I like to visualize things. You have the Moses Jackson Center, where you have the Banford Center, where these families can come together. You can build something, partnerships, where the kids will be taken care of while the mother is going out to work. They can be trained in the Moses Jackson Center, or the Salvation Army can partner and invite the people in the community to come and work with them. That's just visions. And I know it may be a vision that will not be received by everybody, but that's my vision.
Well, I'm thrilled that you think it's not an outlandish thing at all, that you think it's a possible way to fund from an increase in visitors in the motel tax paradigm. Acquiring this for
I think it takes funding coming from many sources. There are sources out there, like the Department of Interior may have some funding. Sure. You have to have someone that can look at the many sources, historical money that can be used for all of that. So it can't be done just with local money coming in. This has to be a big project.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're on board with it.
Huh?
I'm glad
we're glad that you're open to supporting, the preservation of it, through a variety of means. We just feel that is the most immediate kind of gut check about it. Mayor Jackson, I can't thank you enough for giving us such a generous amount of your time. I believe you're a real contender in this race, and I believe that you would deliver on a lot of what you are talking about. We have some disagreements policy-wise. That was clear in this conversation, but I enjoyed that it was respectful and that we can disagree without being too disagreeable. I think that's important in politics. We just interviewed a libertarian candidate a day or two ago, so you'd be surprised where you agree and where you disagree. And I think the same can be said. Your leadership is storied, and we thank you for your continued commitment to the Savannah community. We wish you the best of luck, and please, stay safe on the. Oh yeah, please tell people I've got your information scrolling on the bottom here.
Oh yeah, okay.
For your website, email, phone number. It's okay. I've got your Facebook, website, email, phone number scrolling, but I do want to offer you the chance to just close with your opportunity here with us on Better Savannah's podcast. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, as I said earlier, but I want the residents of this community to know that I am a servant leader in a sense. I believe that we have to reach out and work together in a team. That is the only way we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. I plan to take my skills to the legislature, but I need your support. I don't want to see it get into a runoff, because if it does, I can tell you right now, we still won't have any representation when they're drawing the lines. So I'm saying, send me, because I know how to draw the lines. Thank you. And to work with people. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Absolutely. Again, Mayor Jackson, thank you so much for joining us on our episode for this race. I know that you'll continue to campaign right up until the wire. This episode will premiere on Tuesday, October 5th. So you'll have to have been registered by then. But early vote. When does early voting start?
Let me see. I believe it's, oh God, now I don't have my notes on that one.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, y'all should have it.
It's either the 11th or the 18th. It's one or the other.
Yes. Or they can call my number and I will get the information for them.
We'll check it and put it up on our feed as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You're muted.
Here. Oh, still, it was quite an honor to have Mayor Jackson on this episode.
Sure was.
She's really quite a leader, and I mean, when I said, I don't think I would have the political experience or kind of first principles I do without that experience on the bond authority. A lot of the way those appointments end up working is, you appoint somebody and their term overlaps a different mayor's term, and so I think being on that board during Mayor DeLoach's term was just, so valuable for my own experience and valuable for the service I've been trying to give to the Savannah and Chatham County area as well.
You might have cost her a few votes there, Chuck.
I hope not. I sure hope not. I know that I cost Eddie DeLoach a lot of votes 4 years later. The infamous wag your finger at Chuck Fagan in the JEA. I'll never forget that night.
All good fun.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, we respect former Mayor DeLoach, as much as former Mayor Jackson as well. And so
anybody that's gone the distance and piloted the city deserves.
Right. She said that. She said, "You don't know what it's like to sit in that chair."
Yeah,
and. I just thought it was a fair point, Yeah,
you were talking about, that Shirley, her time has seen some crazy stuff on council.
Yeah.
Whether it was headbutting, I was waiting for the Tony Thomas question.
Sure.
Or recollection.
I didn't want to go there with her. I just felt like it was kind of.
Of course not. But to your point, yeah, there's been a lot of, moments, if you will, on council that are standout. So anyway.
Okay, so I want to share my screen because I want to make a point for Mayor Jackson. I think her pitch is strong about redistricting, representation, and the special session, John. And I think if she goes solely on that issue, she's got a great chance of making the runoff for sure, but maybe even winning. I just want to. This just came out, John.
All right.
Let me pull this up. This is the draft Congressional District 1 map, okay? And this is the current one to the left here, okay?
Okay.
So we are basically staying the same. They're giving us Appling County, strong Republican. This is horrible news for Wade Herring. Again, Better Savannah doesn't advocate in federal elections, everybody, but just as a commentary, that's bad news for Wade Herring if he thinks the districts are going to change for him to win. It also means that if this is what the map ends up being, it's likely no other major Democrats will enter that race, which kind of sets the table locally for us a little bit more. But it just basically looks like we're getting slightly more of Effingham, the same part of Bryan High. Everything is the same, except we're absorbing Appling County. So one super strong Republican county getting put into this congressional district map. This is, again, just live reported by our friend of the committee, George Cheedy, up in Atlanta, who's following the redistricting process. That special session is going to start the last week of October, the first week of November, but the committees are releasing information kind of day by day. So I just think that, I believe that on Medicaid expansion and on redistricting, Mayor Jackson would be super strong. On a lot of our local issues, John, the agreement is just not there. I think there's some respect. I think we could maybe convince her with a coalition of people asking for the CETA board to be changed over. I think there's a couple things that maybe she'd be open to if a bigger group of people kind of followed up and wanted to put a coalition together and demand the legislative delegation do something.
Yeah.
But outside of like a really big push on something, I just don't see a lot of love for our local issues. But a wonderful interview. Honored to have her. I mean, couldn't have enjoyed that interview more.
Institutional knowledge, man. She's
great institutional knowledge. I'd love to have her back on the show in the future.
Me too.
Just because,
she's so pleasant. I love talking to Mayor.
Yes, for sure. I just think that her experience leads her to trust those who are in charge. And ours just leads us to the opposite conclusion. And
well,
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that if she wins this election, especially if she wins it outright without a runoff, I'll be very interested in what working with her is like as a delegation member.
Yeah,
because she said, what comes up to the delegation is different. We're going to send people up there, just like we did last year, John. We're going to send people up there.
Yeah. I'll say this, and I'm not the political whiz that you are, but
sure.
I think you'll agree with me. If there's anyone in this race for 165 or Mickey Stevens' old district that could win this outright, it would be Mayor Jackson.
You would think, logic would think that. Some people might say Clinton Young because he got 40%, 39% 2 years ago. Might be close to that as well. I don't know. John, this is the last broadcasted interview in terms of the order they're going to get broadcasted. This is going to come out 2 days before we do our show I think we should do that Thursday show for our members first and then release it a day later or 2 days later, something like that.
What do you think's best?
I just want to give some time for people to absorb all of the interviews. They're going to release back to back this past week and then another one over the weekend and then this one on Tuesday the 5th. So just, even though I think we still got one more interview to go recording time frame wise, just any general thoughts on what you've heard so far from the candidates before we have our Thursday, October 7th kind of show that wraps up all of these interviews.
Considering we've done Mayor Jackson, we've done Sabrina Kent, we've done the Libertarian guy. We've done Antoine. We have one to go. Clinton Young, and that's tomorrow. I noticed, Chuck, that the newer candidates and the newer candidates tend to want to appease us and agree with our platforms. Okay.
The experienced ones don't.
The experienced ones don't.
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me not that they disagree with our ideas. I think it's more a situation of they're more skilled at avoiding answering questions.
Oh, sure. Edna's been doing this for years. Mayor Jackson's been doing this for years. Antoine Lang's been studying for this for years.
He may be 27 years old, but he is.
It's not the years; it's the mileage.
Yes, yes. He's got the skill set of a seasoned elected official. I think he lives and breathes this stuff.
I did at one point too. Some people think I still do, but believe me, I had to step away and take a couple of phone calls during this. I really appreciate you carrying a couple parts of that interview. I tried to time it so that way I could do my questions and you could get some in.
Yeah. The only thing we didn't get to with Edna and
Scad,
yeah,
I know.
But
it's tough. Even with an hour and 15 minutes of recording, it's hard to hit all these issues in depth. And a couple of our members gave us some feedback because we didn't ask the Libertarian candidate about the SB 208 and the voting restrictions. It's just because look, there's only a certain amount of time, certain amount of questions, and so we for sure all the candidates did not get exactly the same questions. We tried to make sure there were several that all of them did. But
we strive to be consistent in in tone and temperament.
Sure.
We may ask one candidate 5 questions out of 6, and the next one gets 6 out of 6. That's a constraint of the time frame, the length of the answers coming back, the sidebar discussions,
the follow-ups. Yes,
yeah, it's
look, if there's a runoff, I think we'll have a debate style forum, but it's not the 5 candidates plus us 7 people on a screen like this.
No,
it's not good. Let's just leave it at that. It's not good. I'm gonna get ready after we put this out and post this in the members group for the full episode. And this is just another. Again, it's hard to believe this is episode 59. The next episode will be episode 60, recapping House District 165. So
I used to have some brown hair when we started.
I don't know about that actually.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one, John.
No, I'm stretching that fabric pretty thin. I think
I had shorter hair for sure when we started this. I've been growing it out for a while. So let me. I gotta hit B Street up soon. But guys, thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode. I just really want to again give a super big shout out to Mayor Edna Jackson for agreeing to sit down and giving us a generous amount of time that we asked for to be able to have a productive discussion, even though there's some major policy disagreements.
Yeah.
Mac, guys.
Well, let's mention our friends in House.
Always, yes. If you want more progressive media, independent media that is kind of telling things like it is, I'll do a reverse order this week. We'll start with the Savannian, who just got their nonprofit status, nonprofit independent media. That's Jim Marikas, Rachel Flora, Sean Kelly. Those guys write great independent content, stories that nobody else is talking about. A lot of our elected officials do great lives. On Monday on the ATR network, it's Keisha Carter. She's probably going right now while we're finishing up this recording. I'll go look at her episode. Candidly Keisha is her public service access show. On Alicia Miller Blakely, Alderwoman at Large Alicia Miller Blakely's on Tuesday, it's Bias for Us, which is her kind of public service show. What else is on ATR Wednesdays?
The Jimmy J show.
That's on Fridays.
Yeah, Jay Jones, Primetime Friday, chairman of the local Democratic Party.
Jimmy J tells it like it is. The Rabble, probably their best, my favorite show of theirs. That's on ATR Wednesdays at 7. Always a really good. They do a lot of national coverage as well, but they talk about local stuff, and when they do, it's always pretty good.
I just watch it to see Eric Scott beat up on Charlie Brown.
I miss it. I haven't seen her in a couple of weeks. Also, my favorite to watch every week, Saturday afternoon, 6 p.m.
Yeah,
Pastor Leonard Smalls on Community Political Action Committee page.
Yep.
These are all kind of outlets that we follow and make sure to keep up with. And if you want more content than what we can provide, for free, for sure, check those out. If you want early access, so again, John, we're recording this on September 27th. Our members going to have this interview for a whole week before it goes out to the public. Nice. If you want early access to this type of content before it goes live to the public, you want to make sure that you go and subscribe. You could do it 2 ways. You can go to www.bettersavannah.org. We'll get the receipt. We'll put you in the Facebook group on Facebook. Or if you don't do Facebook,
your opinions on important subjects.
Yes, the Facebook group. There's lots of interaction. Members are chatting. People are giving feedback and ideas. But if you want, if you just like the media, if you just like the content, but you want to support us monetarily, one of the best ways is on Patreon.com. It's patreon.com/BetterSavannah. It'll get you access. I usually post there first after I'm done editing. And then the Facebook group takes about 30 minutes to upload. So please continue to consider supporting us for early access and more bonus content. After we get through this electoral, we'll have some other shows themed a little less electorally like we had for much of the year, John.
Sure.
But again, guys, if you know somebody who lives on Tybee Island, make sure they back Mac. Okay? Back Mac. I'm going to play some adverts for our good friend here in a second on our way out. But again, We got several elections we're keeping an eye on. This one, House District 165, Tybee Island, Port Wentworth, Garden City a little bit, East Blos. There's a lot going on. So please be sure to support, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. John, thanks for another wonderful episode. Listen to the gentleman here. Pay attention. That's really one of the best things I could have imagined. All right, I'm going to take us out. Have a great night, everybody.
Opinion, Tybee hasn't managed growth very well. We still have a chance at bringing back our community. Tybee is definitely worth saving. Tybee is definitely worth saving.